Hi, and thank you for joining me on another episode of A Voice for Treasures from the Past. On this episode, I'll be doing a part 2 of regarding the small lithograph in which I'm trying to identify the artist, the creator of this vintage lithograph. In my first video regarding this lithograph, I did fail to mention that it was very gracious for the Getty Research Institute, the research library, to send me scanned copies of Odilon Redon's known correspondence letters for research, and very thankful for that. It's been a big help. So in this video, I am going to be focusing in on the evidence that I have, which is the title and the signature. And of course, the subject matter can be certainly subjective. Lots of artists out there, many, that's an understatement. But more scientific, I think, is to focus on the handwriting at this particular time. Interesting that I had a comment on my first video stating that the subject matter is outside of what Odilon Redon's work would it wouldn't be in that scope of work, his scope of work, which I find kind of amusing because without doubt, I mean, I'm not going to pull up or show today examples of wide degree of humans and figures and the sun, and oh my gosh, he was so dynamic and all over the place, so in a good way. So I'm just going to disregard that. Now, there was some discussion about which you won't see on the first video, but regarding what avenues to take to verify the handwriting. And it occurred to me on the tail end of that first video, I had posted images of the known Redon handwriting examples or samples with the title and the signature found on the lithograph. And I was hoping, hey, can an expert take a look at it? And as I wrapped well, I don't do a whole lot of editing, but just the final upload of that video, it occurred to me that there's tools out there now that are wildly or shockingly sophisticated at our fingertips now. As we all know in this world, AI and the ability to examine and compare digital images, because it's really mathematics. I mean, it's really architecture of the letters and such. So that said, I went ahead and decided to give it a go with Chatgpt, the comparison. So what we'll do here in a moment, is I'll be going to the computer and I'll show you what I input. Not all of it, because it's kind of extensive. I would like to just quickly give the steps that I took first, without giving any predetermination of what name I was looking for. I went through each letter through the signature. In other words, I asked ChatGPT to give me what it interpreted compared to just cursive letters, what those were. It hit most of the letters in Odilon Redon, the name, okay? I'm not going to go through it. It was very extensive, and I tried to stay behind it by, in other words, not letting it know in advance what the name I expected it to be or considered it to be. So that said, Odilon Redon was, I mean, it was almost all the letters. Some of his letter characters, or those characters, are, somewhat subjective, I suppose, with no comparison. So that's where it started. I'm not going to go through that long, lengthy list of conversation with ChatGPT. Next, I wanted to then, of course, compare both the title and the signature of on that lithograph to the 6 examples of correspondence that's known Odilon Redon handwriting. That's where things got really exciting, interesting, and just wow, blew me away on how amazingly professional. I don't know how else to say it. With not mathematic equations, but the answers given in a mathematical way that you can look at, interpret, and such. Degrees of angle and this pressure points. Comparing pencil to pen, which were on the letters, really surprising. So that said, like I said, I'll be going to the computer and going through the highlights of that comparison, um, and see what the results came out to be, and see how to show you how ChatGPT laid it out, and what it thought, essentially, what it came up with. So that said, I just really wanted to start this with my set here, which is clearly not AI driven. This is just just my little set that I do for this, a lot of fun with this art. So I'm going to leave it now, and I'll go sit down to the computer. Once again, thank you so much to the Getty Research Institute for sending me those scanned copies. I appreciate it. My computer now, and I've brought up the conversation analysis that I fed into ChatGPT, and to see what it would do with that. See what the results were. So I'll show you here what methods ChatGPT said it would use, which is, of course, methods I'll apply are vision model style analysis, digital style analysis, micro letter for comparison, and macro level observation, global handwriting, because there's a lot of information, I suppose, in the letters to compare to these 2 examples here of handwriting. So without reading through, here are of course, the signature here, which I also have above, um, and the title, which I have above even higher. So I gave it these 2 images for the base comparison. I did go through and gave individual cropped letters from the letters, the A through Z letter from the correspondence letters, to see how it felt about those, the comparison. Interesting, without reading all the details on these were numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4, C1 through C4. Sorry if I'm moving around a lot. The D, and what's interesting is, initially I was disregarding um, the letter here as not a D, but of course it appears as if it's an open D. So anyway, you could see how read-ons Ds are often like this, where I'm circling here, and you can see here on the signature where that would likely be a D if that were indeed Odilon Redon. So I'm going to go ahead and go through there, and then there's C1 through 4. Well, it did just a single letter comparison, not giving it a whole lot. It did say it was plausible that it was by the same hand. All right, it says that it gives me the explanation here, or of what it used, the like we discussed, micro, macro, really specific, both title and C1 through C4. So it's comparing that. But you'll see the conclusion is it's plausible. It is a very small group of comparatives. So it's very narrow. You really have a bigger uh, data set to work with. I kind of figured that's how it would play out, because no handwriting is exact. Even my signature each time looks a little different. So That said, we went ahead and I'm going to go ahead and get down to where I then asked ChatGPT here. Here are my questions. I'd like to upload several full-length letters, written correspondence of multiple words. You know, if you could compare the handwriting of these letters and using all the scientific styles that I asked to the first two images, which was the title and the signature. So again, it was going to use the vision model. It's going to use digital, micro, and macro. All right. So I told it I had six because it likes to. I found Chat GPT will make analysis as you're going. I just asked it to let me download all six first. So here are the letters that were graciously sent to me by the Getty Research Institute. I want to make sure I get that because it was very nice of them to do that. Awesome. So here they are. I've downloaded all of these examples. Now we have all this handwriting here to compare to those two words. Well, three actually. Really, there's a title and a first and a last name. Um, okay, so another thing to note is I was downloading it. I thought it was really interesting how it read the dates, no problem. I didn't ask it; it just knew the dates of the letters and so on. So it kind of knew where it was, where the writing was, which is important to know if it was analyzing it to know what it's reading. Uh, I just never used this format. I've ever done this on ChatGPT. I've used ChatGPT for other things, of course, but this was quite eye-opening. All right, so I had uh, downloaded the letters, and then so the title, it says perform a comparison handwriting analysis again between the two questions, the two items that I had uploaded. The title inscription, again, it knew fraternity, which I didn't tell it, and the signature, which based on previous uh, communication here, back and forth entry, it may know now that I think it's Odilon, but I Okay, so I think we're safe to say it should be fairly mathematic. So I asked ChatGPT here to do that comparison using all the scientific methods again to determine if they are all from the same hand. Okay, so um, it says within 52 seconds it completed the full multi-level comparison of signature A and title from that fraternity in French B against the six correspondence letters L1 through L6. Um, the title, fraternity, and the six letters show strong, consistent handwriting traits and are very likely by the same hand. The stylized signature on the artwork is not inconsistent with hand that wrote the letter and the title. Shows the same underlying habits in reduced ornamental form. So it's plausible, quotations probable, that the signature may have been made the same hand. And then it says, of course, rightfully so, handwriting conclusions are caveat. Uh, probabilistic for legal certification. Probably need to go farther with that, of course. Okay, so how it reached the conclusion. Vision model, it gives you a breakdown of what it's comparing. The letter and title share the same overall handwriting, fingerprint, modest right word slant, regular word spacing, stable baseline, and so on. The signature is visibly more ornamental and exaggerated, large loops, long terminal sweeps, typical of formal autograph. But the way it strokes or form mirrors the same habits, loop geometry and such. Then we get into digital style, used programmatic image measurements to support visual observations, orientation, stroke, geometry, baseline behavior, while accounting for differences in medium and resolution. Again, I'm not going to read it all. Average stroke, orientation across the title, crop letter snippets, clustered, modest rightward slant range, several degrees of the right lean. The signature dominate principal axis, and also right word through the more exaggerated. Uh, Long terminal stroke. Uh, Measurements are affected by instrument versus pen versus pencil. Scan resolutions and such. I treated these as supportive, not definitive. So micro, we're going to get through this part. Capital F, uh, pronounced crossing letter shows cursive capitals and compound letters. E crossbar here. The crossbar on the lower case T in this is set relatively high and often slant up to the right. The same high forward crossbar appears repeatedly. I'm not going to go through the rest of it, but it kind of follows that same, or does follow that same mathematical evaluation. The accent in fraternity is placed close and at a similar slant angle to accent placements in the letters. A small consistency that supports common authorship. Then we go to macro level observation, handwriting, personality, and such. It knows that the letters span years of shown years over years and shows normal expected variations, speed of writing, paper, pen differences, occasional differences in the slope of spacing and such. Okay, strength of evidence. Title versus letter. High confidence, the same hand wrote them. Multiple repeated micro features match across independent examples. Signature versus letter. Title. Moderate to high confidence, the same person wrote the signature, with the important caveat that signatures are intentionally variant and more easily stylized or forged. Pardon me. The signature carries many of the same micro traits, loop construction, terminal shaping in a magnified, flourished form that argues for authenticity, but is less diagnostic on its own than comparisons among the longer samples. Limitations, so it tells us the difference of writing instruments. It tells us for absolute legal, it's doing the, hey, you probably need to put a set of eyes on it, human eyes, potentially professional, right? So practical next steps. And I asked it to save because I had to break in the middle. Um, so I wanted to do a final, just kind of to find out if ChatGPT is actually reading. Can it both translate from French and then also determine all the words that are in it? Because you'd need that for the handwriting, at least for the most part. May not need to know all of the structure, but because you can look at the individual letters and how they interact. So I asked it, can it read the signature in the letter one? Yes, letter one dated, of course. It pulled that out, 1887. The cursive signature at the bottom clearly reads Odilon Redon. That matches the known from of Odilon Redon's authentic handwriting signature. Can you now read the signature, which is the first image that I uploaded, and read that first and last name? Looking closely at the first image you uploaded, pencil signature on the artwork. The cursive handwriting reads as Odilon Redon. Okay. The formation of the O and the uh, distinctive loop R are consistent with Redon's known signatures, though lighter and a bit less fluid than in a correspondence. So now I was thinking, okay, wow, it's well, I'm really shocked at this point and just really fascinated and really surprised. That's great. This is an amazing tool, and I mean, I really don't have, I know there's probably argument to it. Of course, everybody has opinion, but it's just very scientific and very mathematic, and seems like it's picking up where it needs to at that point, or at this point where just identifying the words. So so I asked it again if it can read the signature on the right in the last correspondence letter. Again, yes, in letter 6, it also reads Odilon Redon. The O is large and rounded with an open loop, and so on and so forth.
Finally, I was like, okay, can you read these letters? I mean, are you just looking at specific characters and connections? And I asked it, can it just translate that letter? So if I had this letter and I just couldn't quite read it because of um, the cursive, which is tough to read by hands or by a person's hand, often hard to read. And so here it was. So it asked if you want to do it in French and English. I said, go ahead and do it in English. And then, of course, it's my dear friend. It translated it virtually verbatim by Odilon, and it was signed, of course, by Dylan Redon. Um, Also, it didn't include the address that was at the bottom. So I then said, well, I'm kind of wondering, well, did it grab it? I said, last thing is there's an address apparently all the way at the bottom page 6. Can you read the address? And then it said yes, and of course it gave the correct address, 45 Rue Design. That's murdered, I'm sure. That was Odilon Redon's Paris address, residence studio. And so there's no, I'm not, that's not in question. Of course, these are from the known correspondence verified from Odilon. So that said, um, oh, I will say, I did ask ChatGPT to, before I scroll down, I should, there was a post on my first video that like I had mentioned at the start of this video, which is regarding like the style and what it couldn't be him, and I just kind of was like, what the heck? That'd be the last thing I'd argue would be the wild symbolic kind of characters in there. So anyway, I just asked, I said, wow, I was kind of shocked from that video's comment. And so I put it into ChatGPT to see what it would say. I said, would you have a look at a response on a video that I created regarding the similarities between the signature title and the letters? Okay, and such. And then I said, here, uh, I hope I don't show anything that I shouldn't here. And not, it said, first of all, they are not his handwritings at all, nor the various monograms or signatures that use. Secondly, the print is certainly not his style, which that's the part I just was like, okay, well, this would be a the first portion of that. That's the comment from the video. That part of regarding the handwriting, I could see somebody going, no way. I mean, I suppose, I didn't think that. That's how I initially, months ago, if not a year or more ago, looked at and started to read the words and was like, okay, I can kind of read what this is. Um, so that I don't know why, but I do get why somebody could go there. The style is just throws the top out the window for me because I'm thinking with tens, if not, 50, uh, vastly different. Everything from a side profile view of just a portrait to eyeballs floating in space and heads floating around. How could you say that's not his style? I mean, it says here Redon had never interpreted human bodies in that matter. Well, maybe that would be cool if it was the first time. That's all I can say. It doesn't really. So, what's really cool is ChatGPT, and I almost posted it back, but I'm not AI, and I'm just trying to look at this artwork and determine what we can. So, suggested response, it's great. Thank you for taking the time to comment. I understand your points, and I'd like to address them carefully. So it's saying back, ChatGPT, which would in turn say that I'm doing it. Well, I'm telling you this is a response from chat. So I compared the title and signature on this print to multiple authenticated read-on letters across different decades. At the micro level, they share consistent habits in loop formation, T, crossbar, diacritic placement, terminal strokes. While stylized signatures can differ in appearance, the underlying handwriting DNA is remarkably stable. Monograms. You're right, the read-on used several variants. What's interesting here is that the integration of the monogram into the plate itself, along with the handwritten inscription. is not inconsistent. Okay. Style and subject. Redon is better known for dreamlike heads, flowers, and simple considers it, but his lithographic output is varied. Some rare pieces do approach human figures differently, especially allegorical context. That doesn't prove authorship, of course, but it means we can't rule out solely on subject matter. Just be silly. Ultimately, I'm not claiming absolute certainty. My goal is to examine the evidence. Okay, so on and so forth. Um, that's it. That's what I'm saying. Chat's got it right. Let's look at it objectively and go from there. And then give me the creator, somebody out there from this is I mean I can not a professional, but I've seen enough works from late 18s, early 1900s. This has got age. This has been around. So this is something it fits in his time span for sure. Um, And then there's another draft option. So I just passed on that. Uh, and then I asked if there were some similar works, and I'll cover that. I wasn't planning on it, but so this is a piece I hadn't shown the whole piece, the work on this chat to him or this conversation to Chat GPT, not the person that commented. Um, and so what it is, I put that on there and I asked, is there any works readily available on the internet that are similar? And, it came up with a handful here, which I think there's others that are even remarkably closer, but and it even gave the titles, the year that it was attributed to being made and so on. So similarities. Many of Redon's human forms are much darker, very good. So it does give it's not just all, positive and absolutely it's got to be. It does give you the contrasting, no pun intended, um, data to use to make the decision. So hope there's a good. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm bouncing this around again. Specifically, you're welcome. I'm glad. Do you want me to? Oh, so I was just asking if it wanted to keep an eye out on the internet for me. So all in all, I'm putting my pointer over this signature, this title, and the 6 letters that I uploaded that were provided to me by the Getty Research Institute. Really are highly likely from the same hand, and even if it's not highly likely, if it's likely, it's pretty amazing. The things that I didn't, put or ask ChatGPT to and analyze is not the context, but the likelihood that Odilon would be doing a work um, with a subject or title of fraternity. Well, yeah, he was, side by side with Nabis, the Nabis fraternity or the group of Nabis. The fraternity translation is a group or so on and so forth. Uh, and I'm not, pardon me if I'm wrong on that translation, but it's something of that nature. So certainly not out of the question. Like, would make sense. That's why I was like, wait a minute. When I was reading that, say a year ago, I was trying to read that signature, and I'm going, okay, starts with an O, ends with an R. Um, you know, the kind of an N on both ends I could see, and then I was like, okay, well, I put the subject matter, and I think I put in, no kidding, I think initially when I first really dug it out, said, okay, I'm try to find out who this is. I had it for some years before that, but I put in mystic or a symbolistic artist. Name starts with an O, and I didn't at first. Um, Catch that fraternity was in French. So it just kind of went boom when I was looking up. It says Odilon Redon. I start looking at all of his works. I'm like, wow, this would be. I mean, this isn't somebody that did just landscapes, and then you're trying to say, oh wow, maybe it's this famous artist, but it's like completely a million miles away from what they do as far as their style or their typical work. I mean, it's right in there. It was like right in that same mystical, wild thing. So I'm thinking, okay, it's Odilon, and I'm starting going, okay, well, as I'm looking at the screen, like, where's the D? And then, of course, I started looking at examples of his Ds in this portion here, and almost all of his Ds are open top, and some of the both legs get very close to each other. And as you can see there, that's a shorter, and then so that's it. It just all these letters started laying out. I'm like, oh, this could be this guy, which of course is pretty amazing, right? We all, I think, I would guess that most people would want to, rather than find out you had a unknown work by, you know, your Uncle Joe versus, Picasso or Odilon or something like that. Sure, well, that's what you'd want to find. So, is there some leaning towards that? Sure, but also there's a lot of work to evaluate because they are so famous. So you can look at all this, and there's handwriting examples where Uncle Joe, nobody cared about his work, in my opinion, but my Uncle Joe, and handwriting, and I have to go dig through boxes, right? So, so it makes it a little easier for some of these comparisons. Again, mystic, symbolistic group of people, five of them, I think, in the picture I did, the lithograph, um, and fraternity in French of dancing under the moon. I assume it's the moon. Wow, that sure sounds like a handful of names from the Nabis Brotherhood, the fraternity of Nabis. I could see Odilon doing that, and I think that there's people out there that could probably agree with me there. So, wonderful stuff. Again, regarding Chat GPT and this AI, this is the most I've ever used, rather than taking a picture of my cat and going, what kind of cat is it? Cool. That's neat. This hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, wow. I mean, how do you argue it? Certainly a professional handwriting expert with decades of experience potentially could sit down and say, sorry, Bob, and sorry, ChatGPT, but you're wrong. You're wrong here and here and here and here and here and here. I don't think they'll do that challenge. I just don't, because the mathematic piece is so darn thorough. I mean, what would you be go? Why it would be a supporting documentation for somebody, I would imagine. Is there something else that you all see in this video and in the images from the first video, um, that tells you that this cannot be that signature, cannot be that hand? Well, I would love to get that response and then see what ChatGPT and myself see what they think, it thinks about that, and try to interpret it, scientifically. So again, I think I'll leave it at that for now. I may actually do one more video, and that might be the style of the actual print. Both what style is it, a lithograph, an etching? Because I'm able to get magnification, of course, because I have it, and I have a digital magnifying microscope, and we could look at it. Secondly, the strokes in this particular lithograph, it's very clear. There's lots of lines going on, which is probably pretty typical how you would make that dark. I mean, I guess unless you painted it with something. But would there be some data there, some scientific data that we could peel out of that and have Chat GPT look at for comparison? That might be number three. But beyond that, thank you for watching another episode, and please comment, good, bad, ugly. I want to hear it, because I really want to ferret this out and figure out who did this, and is it truly something that's super important that needs to be brought out to history. So thanks again, and thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.